headlines and into the real stories shaping our world.
Why paying more than $200 million to have 1,000 Kenyan soldiers come to Haiti when we could use that money to train the police?
What you've done with your grief is actually to spread it, give it, and turn it into the law.
This served Netanyahu because he didn't think Hamas would ever be a serious military threat.
Congo is a country with so much wealth. The people have been fighting to regain control.
From the corridors of power to the front lines of change, Borderline brings you in with analysis of the issues.
The U.S. has power over them. Most of them will steal money from Haiti and invest in the U.S.
So people who support Sonko and Jumai 5, over half of them don't have a voter's card.
Sounds like Nigeria.
Join Ireti Bakare-Yusuf on Borderlines as she engages with policymakers and thought leaders,
giving you perspectives and insights you won't find anywhere else.
Be part of the conversation. Join us live.
Your voice matters on Borderlines as we explore the complexities.
Every Friday at 4 p.m.
on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Stay informed, stay engaged.
Step into the conversation.
Hello and welcome to Borderlines. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. As you all know, this is the only show that takes you beyond borders. So, we have a special guest with us today. Last week, you will remember we spoke about the Palestinian children. Today, we're going to take that conversation a little bit further. Okay? So, it's been almost a year. Well, we're approaching a year to October 7th, the day Hamas attacked Israel. That attack and all the attacks before, right, has led to a flood of attacks on Palestinians by Israel. Under the guise, Israel continues to tell us that they want to delete Hamas. Netanyahu says he's in a battle against Hamas. But the majority of the world would argue that he's in a battle against Gaza, and Gaza being the people. So as always, as you know, those of you who have been following Borderlines, those of you regular listeners, wherever you join us from, Israel, Palestine, London, Barcelona, wherever you join us from, Nigeria, Lagos, Abuja, abroad, wherever you're joining us from, you already know that we've been doing extensive coverage on this war, and of course, from both sides and the international responses. More than 70%, I beg your pardon, of Gaza's homes have been destroyed. Again, I repeat, 70% of Gazans have lost their homes. Schools have been destroyed. Universities have been destroyed. Right now, you can count anything between 40,000 to 60,000 Gazans. When I say Gazans, I mean humans like you and I who have been killed. Now, when I say 40 to 60,000, I am not even including those who are under the rubble who will not be discovered until this war is over. Some would even argue with you and say it's not a war, Ireti. It is not a war. As we know, the ICJ has already said, or the ICC has already said, it's a plausible genocide. Because when it comes to war, two sides have militaries. The Palestinians do not have a military. So anyway, with me today, I have a special guest, as I said. His name is Arnan Bashir. He has over 15 years of experience as an executive in non-governmental organizations, in academic and in the public sector. Arnan has worked as the External Relations Officer at the Office of the President, Dr. Mohammed Shatayeh, the Palestinian Economic Council for Development and Reconstruction, PECDA. Arnan was the International Policy Advisor and International Relations Unit in the International Relations Unit, the Office of the Prime Minister, Dr. Salam Fayyad. He is also the National Project Coordinator. He was also the National Project Coordinator for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Today, he joins me in his capacity as the Director of Operations for Palestinian Children Relief Fund. That is P for Papa, C for Charlie, R for Romeo, F for Freddie. Arnan, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Where are you joining us from, if I may ask?
From Ramallah.
For Ramallah, how are you? We sometimes have Noude, who's become a dear friend of mine, who also sometimes she's a journalist who sometimes joins us from Ramallah. So let's talk about this. Since October 7th, we have over 16 children that have been killed, and that's just since October 7th. The numbers since for the last 76 years would be much greater. The Palestinian, your organization, PCRF, is in the deep of that. So tell us about PCRF first and foremost.
Well, PCRF is a humanitarian, non-religious, non-political organization. It is a U.S. registered charitable organization established over 30 years ago. And the mission of the PCRF is that no child in the region is left without medical treatment. So we operate in Lebanon, we operate in Jordan, we operate in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip, and now in Egypt, because there are so many Gazans in Egypt. And we help children in any capacity we can medically, and we also build capacity in the local healthcare so that medical aid is available for us to fund for these children when needed. Since October 7th, we've evacuated around 150 children abroad. This is a very small number compared to what is needed, but this is what we've been able to do, one of the highest of any international NGO. And we've treated about 50 in Egypt, so around 200 children out of thousands that need to be evacuated and treated.
Wow. One of the statistics that that came up when researching about this was it 10 children per day have lost one or both legs. Is that correct?
The amount of, to be honest with you, all of the statistics coming out are questionable. No one on the ground is able to provide actual data through an actual census and to say we have, a certain number of amputees. But our estimates are around 10,000 children, amputees currently need evacuation and treatment. This is just an estimate based on our people on the ground and other agencies that we work with. So this is a number really that is far beyond anything we've witnessed in all of our years of operation. The scale of this is tremendous. Treating, for example, 10,000 amputees with surgeries and prosthesis is really a job that would require a multi-state effort, multi-organizational effort to cover it, both in terms of logistics and in terms of the funding. Currently, because there is not access to Gaza or not access for these children to evacuate from Gaza, they're not getting the treatment they need.
And we also hear that quite a lot of amputations, at least at the beginning of this war, genocide, conflict, whatever you choose to call it, that many amputations are done without anesthesia. Is that correct?
Well, we've heard reports again from the ground of children dying because they've run out of medicines, anesthesia medicines included. There are no adequate painkillers. Children are going into shock. We've heard reports of these things occurring. We've spent quite a bit of money, quite a bit of support on two areas. It's nutritional support because for a while there was a shortage of food. There still is a shortage of food. although my reports from the ground is that it's a little bit better. And now there's a shortage of medicine. And so, yes, there have been shortages in medicines since the beginning of the war. And it's very difficult to coordinate the entry of medicines. The regulations keep changing. The conflict keeps changing. So there are many other kinds of medicines for simple things like polio has resurfaced. There are a whole hosts of skin diseases that are not being treated, and we are trying to bring in medicines as we speak.
I'm glad you mentioned polio. While Israel has said they would give, if you like, ceasefire windows for the polio vaccine to be administered in around Gaza. Yes, I think it was 3 days ago, one of the executives of the UN said that one of the humanitarian trucks, which was going out to actually administer those polio vaccinations, was attacked and surrounded by, the IDF. They were subjected to a lot of violent confrontation, as a result of which they had to turn back and they couldn't achieve their mission. How would you say the polio vaccination is going?
Well, it has started. We have 4 clinics that are working on the ground that are assisting the WHO and the UN organizations in administrating the polio vaccination. Polio is a problem because, the younger generations have not even been inoculated. I mean, I think I'm not a medical expert, I'm an executive, but from what I remember, 30-year-old and younger have not been inoculated. And so if there's a polio breakout, this is going to be a problem for everyone in the region. I have a vaccination, so I'm not worried about myself, but the children, young adults. So it is unfortunate. Much more needs to be done. Again, there are no clear reports, but also, we are not hearing that it's moving in a way to cover the entire population of Gaza that needs to be inoculated.
And indeed, when you say it's going to affect the whole region, it's in Israel's backyard. So some say the reason Israel is allowing this rollout is because they know that polio would get to them and is to protect themselves, not so much to protect Gazans. Let's talk about PRCF again. How do you get your funding? The F at the end is funds. How do you get your funding?
We are all our funding is from individual donors. We don't take any government money. Traditionally, our base of funding was the USA. Again, online donations. We are a household name in the region for organizations that provide medical aid. We fund medical aid. Really, we're not a direct service provider. We fund medical aid for any child that reaches us or that we find that whose parents are socioeconomically vulnerable and cannot provide that aid, or where medical aid is not available. But yeah, it's mostly the good people. Globally now we've expanded to Europe, we've expanded to South Africa. We have some very good, generous friends in South Africa that are now treating children, and all of it is individual donations.
What is your website before we move on to my next question? Just so people can follow, they can go visit should they wish to donate.
Sure. www.pcrf.net. We also have a presence on Facebook. We are quite easy to find. Palestine Children's Relief Fund, and on Instagram. Any one of these pages. We have other social media presences, but these are the 3 major ones: Facebook, Instagram, and the website.
Arnan, let me take us back to October 7th. Can I ask where you were and what were your immediate feelings when that happened, when you heard what had happened? What were your immediate feelings? Where were you? What were you doing? I mean, let me share with you. I still remember where I was. I was in bed and I turned on the news and I was, oh my God. Those literally were the words that I uttered.
I think the first week we were in shock. The first 3 days, as executives and staff of a humanitarian organization, we were in shock the first 3 days. We knew what was coming. We knew that there was going to be a conflict of immense scale. We didn't know, we didn't realize that it would be quite this extensive in scope, that so much of Gaza would be destroyed, and that it would go on for so long. It's been almost a year now, and there really isn't a horizon for when this conflict will end, when a ceasefire will be in place. The first week was hard. We've operated in the past. Most of our operations occur in peacetime. So we do provide a lot of aid, but we've never provided urgent relief, medical and otherwise, in an ongoing conflict. It was quite a different game. So after the initial shock wore off, we experienced a new kind of shock, a professional operational shock, where we were trying to adapt to working in this environment. We are still a little bit, you look at the numbers, you read about what is needed. With all the work that we've done, with all the millions of dollars that we've spent in food and medicine, and with all the aid that we've tried to provide, we are still we still are surprised from the scale of the destruction and the remaining need, as well as the reports that we have that if a ceasefire were to occur tomorrow, for example, we'd need there's 15 years needed to remove just the rubble from Gaza.
15 years.
Not to mention it would be at least 5 years, I think, before the humanitarian crisis would be addressed.
15 years is a long time. Yesterday, I watched, there's a young lady in Gaza, Bisan, I believe her name is, and she gives regular reports on since the day it started. Yesterday, I watched her video where she spoke about the fact that Israel had expanded into West Bank, Jenin, and all of those places, and that after Israel's new assault on the West Bank, the people of the West Bank or certain humanitarian refugee camps were returning. She then said, the whole point of this video was that as I watched them return, I wished that was me. I looked forward to returning to my home in Gaza. I want to go back. I want to see if my neighbors survived. I want to be able, if I have to put my hands on, to clear the rubble, I want to. I want to rebuild. I want to restart my life again. I am in, that she was in awe of the people in the West Bank who were able to go back, and she would like to go back. What do you think that going back would be like?
It's not going to be possible to return even those in Gaza. First of all, whatever has occurred and will occur in the West Bank is not comparable. The scale of destruction is exponentially greater in Gaza. Even if you are in Gaza, you can't go back to Gaza. Gaza has been destroyed. There is very little left. Again, you mentioned 70% of homes have been destroyed. Whole neighborhoods have been flattened. We will need 15 years just to remove the rubble, to reconstruct. Gaza will take probably 2 decades fully. So, I don't see it happening practically anytime soon. Even for those that are displaced internally.
Wow. Let's talk about education then. Prior to the war, there was 97.3% literacy in Palestine overall. In fact, comparably, Israel had 91.7%, and the US in 2022 had 79%. So in spite of the violent occupation of Palestine, in spite of the death and the desecration of the society, in spite of withdrawing water, food, and basic human amenities, in spite of the fact that Gaza has been described as the world's largest open-air prison, the Palestinians, the Gazans, still manage 97.38% literacy. Arnan, let me just tell you, we don't even have that in Nigeria. This is how incredible that percentage is. Now, why do I talk about that? We'll talk about education, but here's the thing. Every time we hear Palestinians, every time I hear Palestinians, the one thing, if you could just move back from the camera a little, because I'm getting a message that you're too close to the camera for some reason. That's you, Anna. Yes, thank you. That's better. So here's the thing. Every time I hear a Palestinian speak, when I hear them sing, when I see their drawings, when I see the art, when I see the documentary, when I read the poetry, when I read the articles, when I speak to them and I realize this one is a prof, this one is a doctor, every single one of them say they are resisting. They use everything within them to resist. Will resist by posting social media videos. We resist by laughing. We resist by dancing. We resist by drawing, by talking to the world. We resist with education, clearly. Tell me something. Where does that Palestinian resistance come from? Where within the Palestinian culture, spirit, just the makeup of the Palestinian? Where does that resistance come from?
Well, Palestine, if you look at its history, Palestine has been occupied for a really long time. Before the current occupation, there was the British Mandate. Before that, there was the Ottoman Empire. Through all those periods, Palestinians have placed a premium on education. It's very important to us as a society. We encourage our kids to do the best that they can in school, and because also there's a huge diaspora, there's a huge Palestinian diaspora, and often when there's a diaspora, one of the ways they excel is in education, because not all sectors of the economy are open to them. Palestinians, really, we don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. They need to survive in the current environment, and that's where I think the resilience comes from the need to stay in Palestine and make as much of a life as they can.
Now let's talk about education. The fact that Israel has literally destroyed 87.7% of all school buildings and universities and libraries. I know we've talked about rebuilding, but how do you think that's going to affect this literacy level in the next, within the children that haven't been able to go to school for the last 1 year?
Sure, I estimate probably a 3 to 5 year gap. We've seen this in the first Intifada. And to a lesser extent in the second Intifada, there's going to be a gap. But I think overall we will bounce back. The education, the literacy numbers will bounce back as soon as these children are able to return to school, are able to get some kind of instruction. They will do so. But there's going to be a delay.
There will indeed. So 76 years of Israel's status as the occupying power. How have the displacements affected Palestinian children? And what dire trends is it showing to you at PCRF?
Well, I must say, the only displacement comparable in terms of the numbers, if not in terms of the actual geography, would be 48. Where a very large percentage of the Palestinian population left Palestine in order to protect themselves. So beyond that, there hasn't been anything comparable. And although they are internally displaced in Gaza, they are still displaced. It has the same effect on their lives that most of the population of the north, for example, had to leave to the south, and they live in tents, and they currently keep moving. So the effect that it has had is that there's no stability to their lives. I mean, some things like education, any kinds of hobbies, any kind of things that you do on a regular basis have been disrupted for these children, comparable to 1948, both in number and in the time. It's almost been a year again.
Wow. So we had Hamza Obama here, the spokesperson for Hamas, and the Israeli ambassador to Nigeria, Michael Freeman. They were both on this show recently. Israel and Palestine do not agree on the number of casualties from the attacks. What does PCRF believe is the casualty, even though you've said to us the statistics coming out can't be trusted because nobody can get into Gaza? Nobody's able to actually do a proper count. What would you say it is, and how bad is the humanitarian crisis?
Look, we know it's bad. I mean, the numbers, even if, I don't know exactly what they're disagreeing about. And again, it's almost impossible now to get an actual number. And maybe even, when a census is possible, it's going to be difficult to determine exactly how many people have lost their lives or how many people have been negatively affected by this. But even if we are debating between 40 and 60,000 killed, it's still a very large number. Between 70 and 90% of Gaza destroyed. Even at the low end of the estimates, as a percentage of the population, it's quite high.
Let's talk about UNRWA. Does PCRF work closely with UNRWA?
Everybody works closely with UNRWA because they have the largest network internally for distribution. We're familiar with UNRWA in Gaza, yes. We've worked with them in the past.
Okay, so recently, or the latest news says that 6 UNRWA staff were killed. In addition to that, there's been 220 UNRWA staff killed so far. It's the highest in history, according to UN reps. Why do you think Israel is taking out health workers, UNRWA, hospitals? Why?
Honestly, I can't provide an answer to this question. I have no idea. Usually these are marked locations, and so it would be clear. But I'm not a military expert. I don't know what goes on down there. It's very unfortunate that aid workers and all kinds of urgent relief humanitarian agencies are being are suffering this way because it prevents the aid that's coming in. It puts an obstacle to that, the very little aid that's coming in.
Indeed it does. Let me just tell my callers, you can call, on my listeners rather, 0201-277-0993. The female line is 0201-465-7190. You can send a WhatsApp on 0809-597-5805. Do you have any questions, any comments? I'll be picking up your calls now. The lines are now open. Let's talk about ceasefire. We've gone back, forth. There's a ceasefire. There's no ceasefire. There's going to be a ceasefire. It's literally almost, I don't know about you, but I can honestly say the people of Gaza, their hopes are taken up and then it gets dropped again. They expect it to come. America says it's coming and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. As a Palestinian, how would you say that affects the psyche?
Well, look, let me answer from the perspective of a humanitarian
Please.
worker and a humanitarian organization.
Please.
The bulk of our work is going to begin once a ceasefire is in place and access has been enhanced. And so we feel quite helpless, even though with all the aid that's being done by us and others, it's still really just scratching the surface. So I think as a humanitarian organization, as humanitarian staff who really are in this job based on a very personal commitment to serve others, this is demoralizing because again we cannot get to the bulk of the people that the vast majority that actually need the most help are stuck inside of Gaza. We cannot get to them. We cannot still in any meaningful way begin cleaning and reconstructing Gaza. So it is quite demoralizing. We hope soon, it's hard to say exactly what's happening. Again, I'm not a specialist in politics or military affairs, so I don't know what is taking so long. But even as soon as it happens, really the work is going to start for all of us. So we're eager to get into Gaza in greater numbers and to be able to serve the population there in desperate need of aid.
I could imagine. Let me just answer calls from my listeners. Hello? Okay, go back. Yeah, I can actually imagine, because it's every time one sees an image, the news, I'm news obsessed, and I'm constantly watching this. And I remember, especially at the beginning, I've felt a sense of responsibility. But how do we help the people of Gaza? The only way we can do is to keep watching, not to ignore it, not to switch over, because if it makes us uncomfortable, then definitely it is bad for them. But let me just answer this call. Hello?
Yeah, good evening, Sylvie.
Good evening. I need you to speak up, please.
Yeah, we have Manuel on the line now.
Go ahead, Manuel.
Yeah, I want to ask your guest, if how everything comes to a halt today, like the crisis is over, what will be the priority?
Okay.
What should be the priority to
I understand, yeah.
positively decide an average Palestinian child?
Good question. Thank you very much. I don't know whether you heard Emmanuel, but what he's saying is, if PCRF was able to go in today, how would you prioritize your response? Because I can imagine you're going into an absolute disaster zone.
Well, look, there's what we know. We would continue to do food and medicine in large quantities, because that need is not going to change from a ceasefire. Okay, the need for these basic supplies, food, medicine, hygiene, sanitation, clothes, tent, shelter. This is going to stay for a long time. We have actually extensive plans for what would happen if we were able to get in and actually start constructing. Although there are a number of field hospitals there, and we've built 2 of them, they are not equipped in any way that can respond to this humanitarian need. So we would equip as many field hospitals as we can. We would invest in mobile clinics. We would rehabilitate and reconstruct very quickly to make existing structures of clinics, primary clinics that can be somewhat salvaged, and hospitals. We would rehabilitate them and begin operating immediately, assisting the authorities there, or the organizations that can actually provide medical aid. We would assist them in operating these structures, and we would supply as much medicine again as needed for the operation of the public healthcare system there.
Indeed, thank you. You can call now. I knew it. Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name and where you calling from, please? I need you to speak up a bit louder, please.
I'm John from Ogun State.
Go ahead, John.
I'm coming from a different angle. And this is, can you briefly
I need you to turn off your radio, please.
Okay, I've done that now.
Okay.
Can you briefly enlighten me or tell me the origin of Hamas? I know of Palestine.
No, we can't. Not on this show because we started. No. Hello, let me stop you. Let me stop you. Let me stop you, please. Right?
When are you
Can you listen? Otherwise, you need to. Right. Listen. First and foremost, when we started Borderlines a year ago, we have done extensive history on Palestine, on Israel, on Hamas, on how they were created, how they came about, on PLO, on Yasser Arafat. We've had historians, we've had academics. So I'm sorry, I cannot waste time talking about that, and I will not put that to the guest. Right. Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name and where you calling from, please?
Yes, Madam Lucky from Lekki.
Go ahead. I need you to speak up, please.
I want to first of all thank you, Madam Ireti. I've been listening to you for long. You are the only voice I've seen since this impunity that is going on in the world today. You are the only voice I've seen. Even some people, it's not even in their headline. So let me end there. I want first of all to ask your guest one question. That the removal of children from incubators in Gaza, killing amputation of children. That don't you think that in future, children that are growing up today, they will become more anger over Israelis by seeing their people and remembering the memory of children being taken out of incubators.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a question that comes up quite a lot, which is with children watching the atrocities. I mean, generations have been wiped out. Let's not put it mildly, because what's going on over there isn't mild. Generations have been wiped out. Children have lost their parents. Some have lost all of their family. The anger, the pain, the trauma. How do you begin to teach that children and help them heal from that pain, especially from a humanitarian angle, in order to prevent them from actually acting out any, sort of anger that's inside?
Well, we're going to have to invest heavily, and by not just the PCRF, but all the organizations that are working, that are going to be working in Gaza, we're going to have to invest heavily in psychosocial support, in counseling, in therapy. First of all, to heal the trauma that's been experienced by children and others, and to channel it constructively. I hope there are a lot of institutions in Gaza that are specialized in this. They're not operating now, most of them, but as soon as things are stable enough, we have plans as PCRF to invest heavily in these organizations that provide psychological counseling and to get access to children that need it, to fund their access to such therapy. So again, there needs to be wide scale investment in all organizations providing psychosocial support. Also, maybe the establishment of new organizations because again, the scale is so dramatic compared to it's so much greater than anything we've ever experienced. We probably need to bring in experts from abroad, also in the shape of medical missions to provide psychosocial treatment for these kids, and it will need to be long-term treatment.
Indeed. I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned that, you're going to be inviting doctors, therapists, psychotherapists, and in particular, that psychosocial support. That, prior to this current genocide, Palestinian children were already known to be suffering from, trauma and needing lots and lots of therapy, even though they continued to move on. The people themselves continue to move on. So I'm so glad you said that. Let me just answer one more call. Or you can call back. I have a message on WhatsApp. Where is, oh gosh, I'm trying to get the WhatsApp message. And the calls are coming in fast. This is Jaja. How many times does Israel have to prove that UNRWA staff are Hamas operatives? Just this week, Israeli found the Hamas operatives traveling along with UNRWA aid convoy and contacted the UN to intervene. They arrested, but the UN didn't respond. The UN turned around later to condemn Israel for arresting those Hamas operatives. Is the UN serious at all? The UN keeps proving that it is another harm of Hamas. Would you agree with that statement?
This is a very technical statement. I'm not qualified to agree or disagree with such a statement. Honestly, I don't know if there are,
No, I'm just saying about the UN. Would you say the UN is an extension of Hamas? I'm only asking in the capacity that you.
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. That's a nonsensical statement. That's a nonsensical statement, right? So let us, whenever I'm discussing this conflict or the humanitarian crisis or anything, I try to stick to logical statements. It's impossible to say that, and illogical to say that UNRWA is an extension of Hamas. Anything, if there are people that are in UNRWA that are affiliated, Hamas is a huge movement. So I don't know enough on the ground. I'm not an intelligence, I'm not a military expert, so I can't answer that question. But to say something like that UNRWA is an extension of Hamas is quite a silly statement.
Thank you. I'll answer more calls. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes.
I like the conversation. I've been waiting for this. Just a little idea or suggestion that I want to add. For me, I'm telling some of my friends in my office that this is a simple thing for myself. I don't know others. So, like the Hamas operating, can they just submit the people they are holding hostage? So these children that are killing and their mothers can be able to enjoy this life. Because me, if I'm watching it in my home, you see the tears, because I don't have mother, I don't have father. So I'm feeling the pain to them.
Thank you.
So it's somehow, let them submit these people so that the ceasefire operating will stop.
Thank you. However, I must say to you that there's some over 7,000 Palestinians who are held in Israeli hostage who are yet to be released. Just for balance. Hello? Okay. Right, I have another question here. It's from Ion, who said, what is needed to have effective ceasefire and rebuild Gaza? So I guess maybe he's meaning funds and, resources.
The needed funds and resources. Well, the estimates by the UN organizations keep changing. I think the last I've heard, I think 6 months ago, I remember maybe it was already in the low billions. Honestly, we have no idea. At PCRF, we don't really deal with, estimating what it would require a wide-scale reconstruction, but it might be something around $20 billion, maybe $30 billion over the course of a decade to get Gaza back into a livable geography.
Wow. I have another message here. It says, good afternoon. If I may ask, isn't it time we urged Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to stop its military attacks and proceed to a ceasefire. Even to the blind, significant human and material damage has already occurred. Hamas and ordinary Palestinians are not the same, and indiscriminate attacks on ordinary citizens should not be tolerated under any circumstances. All world leaders should keep in mind there's always a day after. That's from Femi Adebule. Indeed, I remember Anthony Blinken. One of the things that he kept saying at the beginning is, the day after, the day after, the day after. And every time he said the day after, all that went through my head is, well, the day after will be humanitarian. The day after that will be humanitarian. It'll be the humanitarians, NGOs, CSOs, organizations that actually come to clean up this mess that you keep calling the day after. Would you agree with that statement?
Could you repeat the statement again?
Right. Yeah. So I said, when at the beginning of this war, the genocide, Anthony Blinken would always say the day after. The day after, the day after. And every time he said the day after, the one thing that would go through my head was, well, the day after isn't going to be about you, politicians. The day after will be resolved by the humanitarian organizations. The day after that will be the humanitarian organizations. The day after that, and the day after that, and every single day after will be about humanity and the humanitarian organizations. Would you agree with that?
Yes, of course, I agree fully. There's no, things, these kinds of catchphrases the day after, really in humanitarian terms, in terms of, I will bring you in to really our world of working in this kind of situation where we are required to provide humanitarian aid and medical aid in this kind of situation. The day after really is, it indicates a political event, okay? But this is a very much an abstract event, a division between when there was not a ceasefire, when there is a ceasefire. From our perspective, operationally, it's not going to be such a discrete change. We're going to have to continue to provide all of the humanitarian and medical aid that we're providing. And really, our work is just going to have to scale up. It's going to be much of the same for the first 6 months until the population is stabilized in terms of health and nutrition, and then we can move towards reconstructing. So, I guess from a humanitarian perspective, it really is more of the half decade after.
The half decade. Can you just hear that? Please write that down. It's not so much the day after, it's the half decade after. I'm going to answer my last call because we're almost done. Aman, we're almost done. I'll just answer this call and then I'll let you close. Hello?
Hello.
Good evening. Your name, where you're calling from, and your question very quickly, please.
My name is Henry. I'm calling in from KJ.
Go ahead, Henry.
Please, I want us to have a balance.
Okay. When I say you only have a minute, unfortunately, the network decided you had less than that. Right, Arnan, I would like you to leave us with some words. It's important what you said before, the half decade after. What else would you like to leave us with? Because we have many listeners to this show. We have many that listen across the world. We broadcast live on YouTube, on Facebook, and other platforms. What's the message you would like to put through to us as the director of PCRF?
I would like to leave you with that really our work, just from a humanitarian perspective, I will, because I have little time, our work is just starting. We need support. All the organizations, not just the PCRF, all the organizations working in this field need support. Research the organizations that are saving lives. I provided our website. There are other websites. Any amount, whatever small, contributes to saving a child, to saving a human, to saving a parent, to getting someone medicine. So please, the crisis is of such a scale that any help is much appreciated. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you for allowing me to speak about the humanitarian crisis and the work that we're doing to help all these people and children.
And before you go, I forgot to ask, and I must, how are you doing?
Well, I mean,
no, not the organization. Arnan Bashir, the brother, the person, the human being that's in front of me. How are you doing?
I'm going to answer honestly. I'm just doing my job. We've been working double shifts since the beginning of this crisis. We're just doing our job. What makes us, I'm speaking about myself and the staff that's with me, what makes us happy, what makes us feel accomplished is that extra child or extra person that we assist, the more food, that extra package of food that we get in, extra shipment of medicine that can come in. As long as we are able to do that, we are fine.
Thank you so much, Arnan. Really important speaking to you. Thank you for enlightening us and educating us even more. Thank you. And all the best.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good weekend.
You too.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's